Hi everyone, Nura here. I hope you're having a beautiful week. So here we are with our weekly updates. We do some astro recapitulation where we're looking at the transits of the past week. We integrate here in the now, and then we look ahead for some strategy for the coming week. So one major reason why recapitulation is so important, and especially for me in the work that I do, and why I believe astrology is so beneficial as a healing tool, is to help us remember where we've been so that we know where we are, so that we can, from a place of centeredness, awareness, know where we want to go. So that's really what the purpose of all of this is. And wherever you are in any type of healing journey, story is a really big part of it. And I've been reflecting on this a lot, especially because we're already in the pre-retrograde shadow for the Mercury retrograde. And this is when a lot of remembrances start to come up. We start to become acquainted with the content that we will be exploring during the Mercury retrograde period. So Mercury will be stationing retrograde in just a couple days. So this is very exciting, but we've already been in this pre-retrograde shadow phase for a week and a half now. So we already have a good idea of where this is in our chart, hopefully. So between 26 degrees Taurus and 4 degrees Gemini, anything in that 8-9 degree window in your chart, that's fair game to be reflected on really, really deeply over the next couple months. And the reason I think it's so important to do recapitulation work, which is simply remembering, is because it helps us to get clear on our story. Because, and I don't know about you, but I definitely can remember some stories that I thought this is how it happened. And then it turns out, oh, it actually happened a totally different way, but I just remembered it wrong. Or I remembered it according to what I was feeling. And then maybe I exaggerated some details or left out some details. Well, doing recapitulation work kind of clears all of that out. It clears it up. And we can actually go back to these stories that we think we knew all the details around. We can remember them. We could set the record straight for us. And I do think in the realm of healing our story and then reclaiming our narrative, it is important to give the story voice. I know some people will have the strategy of just let it go, like just let go of the story. I'm a fan of letting the story be shared, because especially if you have any sort of throat chakra trauma where you feel afraid to speak, one of the most healing things to do is to just talk about how you're feeling, to talk about what you're thinking, what you're reflecting on, and not feel like you're going to be bound by it forever. Like if you say something wrong or you speak about a way that you felt, that you're somehow dooming yourself to more of the same. There's this very interesting kind of dangerous slippery slope sometimes in the spiritual community, especially when it comes to the law of attraction, things like this. It's like, oh, if you speak about something bad that's happening, you're going to expand that and you're going to create more of that. In my experience, that's not at all how it works. And there is an edge to this. So we want to make sure that we're interacting with our stories in a balanced way. I think there's a very distinct difference between retelling a story, remembering, and literally remembering, pulling yourself back together, and then from your higher self voice, communicating with all parts of yourself, saying, I love you, I'm here for you, I hear that this is what happened, of course you felt that way, of course you said something like this, and being very compassionate with ourselves, and then maybe telling a new story or communicating with that aspect of ourself, our inner children, because I think we have many. Oh, it's okay. Like, what resource would you need at this time? What could I do for you at this time that would help you to feel seen or heard or validated? Like, we can have these kinds of conversations in an ongoing sense. And that to me is a really healthy way of reclaiming our narrative, remembering our story. This is a really central part of recapitulation work. And it helps us to heal the thought patterns. It's almost like as soon as you know the truth of a story, you can't really believe the lie anymore. But sometimes it's almost like until you hear it spoken out loud or you write it down, you don't even catch the error. I don't know if any of you have ever done any writing or writing classes, in school. And one of my teachers told me in order to really properly edit your writing, you need to speak it out loud, because that's when you'll actually hear the error. It's almost like using these different senses, these different faculties, and we're in Taurus season, so our senses are awake. If we speak it out loud, we can hear, like there's almost a barometer of like, oh, that's true, oh, that's not true, or that sounds right, that sounds kind of wrong. Like, have you ever been thinking something and then you say it out loud to somebody and it made a lot more sense in your mind, and then you said it out loud and you're like, wait, what did I just say? Oh, I guess that doesn't actually make very much sense then, right? So we tend to believe our thoughts sometimes without really challenging them. And that's where I think it's just really important work to talk it out, make sure we're clear, because thoughts do become things. If we keep repeating a certain story, that's what we'll believe about ourselves, what we'll believe is possible for our lives. So there's that kind of, remembering, restoring. And then there's a different kind, which I think is what most people are sort of cautioning against, which is like really getting into the victim mentality, like reliving the wound, really feeling like you're a victim, like, oh, this story happened to me and this is why I can't make a change. I'm not about that. That's very different than what I described previously. So hopefully you can hear that difference. And I think the core difference is having a witness, like being in your witness consciousness. It allows you to connect with the story in a healthy, grounded, from the observer role. So that's what this is all about. That was a really long-winded way of explaining some of the healing power of words and restoring. But thank you for, if you're still with me live or if you're catching the replay, let me know what your experience is like with this, and what is your self-talk like? And do you find it easy to connect with your stories? Do you find it easy to remember? Thinking about, when you were a kid, thinking about when you're a teenager, when you're an adult, think about 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 1 year ago, 6 months ago, 1 month ago, 1 week ago, 1 day ago. Like, where does your memory sort of stop? Are there certain things that you block out, and why? Are there certain things that you really exalt in your mind and in your memory, and why? Like, what is the content of all of this? So I'm sort of painting the picture here, setting the scene so that you can just come at the astrological transits with this really open-minded approach of how you can use this information. So how I like to use it is looking at the transits and then really connecting with my story. What was my story? If I was to look at the energy of last week, what were the thoughts that I kept thinking? What did I find myself saying? What did I find myself needing to say? Like, what affirmations were really working for me last week? And then how do they connect with where the celestial spheres were? What can I sort of infer about those connections? And this is going to be different depending on your level of astro awareness. But I think, even if you're just knowing where the moon is, that's a really solid amount of astro awareness. And so how are you feeling? And then knowing, oh, well, this is going to happen again in a lot of cases, right? Especially if we're talking about the moon. Okay, so let's look at what we had going on last week. So I was really feeling almost like, especially since the new moon solar eclipse, April 30th, that was at 10 degrees Taurus. That was huge. It almost feels like since that day, we've been in this sort of suspended animation, almost like energy kind of picked us up and then like held us in the air. And now we're just staying here and wondering, okay, what's next? What are we going to do with all of this energy? For some stories that I've heard, people are feeling very inspired, very motivated for new projects, but not quite knowing what are the steps, what's the strategy around that project. And so to those people, if that's you, I say, give it time, give it until we're on the other side of this eclipse portal, like after May 15th, 16th, and maybe even a little bit beyond into June, really. Some other people have felt incredibly emotional or having a lot of headaches or sore throat, things like that, almost like ascension symptoms. And I do think that during eclipse portals, we tend to see an uptick in ascension symptoms, which have a huge range. Search that if you don't know what I'm talking about, and maybe it's what you've been experiencing. And really, it makes a lot of sense that we would experience a lot of ascension symptoms during an eclipse portal because there's a rapid acceleration of the energy. Things are moving faster. What we intend and speak and sort of initiate will really manifest tenfold right now. And that goes both for what we want to create, like something new that we want to put out into the world, but also if there's something that needs to be released, if there's something that needs to be let go of, that will also leave very quickly during an eclipse portal. So that has really been, I would say, the primary energy that we've been working with since last week. And if you know where 10 degrees of Taurus is in your chart, this is a Capricornian degree, according to Degree Theory by Nikola Stoyanovich. And if you layer Taurus with the degree of Capricorn, this is a lot to do with our foundations. This is a lot to do with feeling secure. So this is definitely going to bring up a lot of energy around money, finances, prosperity, abundance, even healing poverty consciousness, scarcity consciousness. And you might be incredibly abundant and have everything you need and more than you need, and maybe be, fluidly sharing it with those around you. But this is a time where there's some sort of expansion around that and liberation around that, because this solar eclipse also involved Uranus, and Uranus is the change maker, the liberator. The mantra of Uranus is choose change before change chooses you. And so you might already know, like, oh, there's something new coming in that's really wanting to liberate me. So my story around the solar eclipse, I just moved in. I moved states about 5 weeks ago, and I slowly been meeting some neighbors. Like, I have a dog, so in the morning I go out and walk my dog and meet some neighbors that way. But there was this one neighbor that I hadn't met yet, and they sort of shouted over the fence, hey, like, we just want to let you know my wife's having her 60th birthday party, and it's probably going to be loud, and but you're welcome to come if you want to come. So we're like, okay, yeah, sure, might as well. If, instead of just like complaining about loud music, definitely I'd way rather be there dancing and hanging out for sure. So we ended up going to this party. And then when I get there, they were giving their speeches of thanks and gratitude. Like, the husband was giving a speech about the wife and how wonderful she was. And then the wife went and was saying thank you to all of her amazing friends. And I learned that she is a very well-connected person where I'm living, and has to do with very similar sort of job and career aspects that are connected to work that I do. So we met, and otherwise I might not have even known that she was a neighbor of mine. And now it seems like, oh, we were supposed to meet. And that happened on the solar eclipse night for me. So that was what I would consider an eclipse event. Quite literally, a surprise was thrown into my lap. So definitely looking at, like, did you have any interesting meetings with people? Have you had any sort of realizations around, like, oh, this job is not for me, or this job is super for me, or this friend, wow, they have something interesting going on, or this new hobby, this new way of spending my time, this new way of spending my money or my resources or my energy. This is all kind of in the realm of Taurus, kind of like our wallet. How are you spending money? What are you valuing? What are you prioritizing? Who are the people and the events and the situations coming into your life to support true alignment with your values? So definitely do some journaling around that. Maybe it was very internal. Maybe you had some sort of massive insight or internal breakthrough around a limiting self-belief, especially where you have Taurus in your chart. And so really celebrating that, like sensing into how this time is actually creating a new foundation for your life in some very important way. Eclipses, since they are near the north and south node of the moon, they are always connected to our destiny. They're always connected to making choices that are going to accelerate our evolution in some way. So really looking at where that is for you and just doing some journaling about it. And of course, while we're in this suspended animation time of this eclipse portal, stuff is still going to drop in. So we have last week April 30th, solar eclipse. Then May 2nd, we had Venus enter Aries. And so Venus, our emerging divine feminine energy. And for the collective, there's something around the warrior Venus, the warrior meets lover. And Venus is also still a morning star right now. So Venus in her morning star phase, which is associated with the warrioress, the really strong, fierce, primal woman who knows what she wants and does not need permission from anybody, the one who gives herself permission, who knows what to do, knows what she wants, and just goes out and does it. That is the collective emergence of the divine feminine right now. We're all having our interaction with that. So I wonder if something has come up for you around that. Maybe you had something that you've been vacillating on, or especially when we had all of the Pisces, which we still do have quite a bit, but especially when Venus was also in Pisces, there's a lot of like dreaminess and not really knowing what is reality. But I really noticed when Venus shifted into Aries, I was like, oh, okay, it's action time. It's time to get really clear and like, what is the path that I'm doing right now, rather than taking it from this really sort of big cosmic soup kind of energy, like my universal purpose, you could say, with Pisces, but really channeling into, okay, what's my purpose right now, Aries? What am I focusing on today? Where does my energy and my instinct and my impulse want to take me today? That is very Venus in Aries. And really trusting our bodies, really leaning into, well, what do I just want to do? And I don't really have to have a justification for it. I don't really have to use logic to make this decision. I don't have to use reason to decide what I'm going to do. And following that and seeing where it leads you. So any sort of journaling that you can do around how you connect with your desires, how you connect with your instincts, your impulses, your body. Do you trust your body? Do you trust your instincts? Do you trust your desires? Yeah, it's big work. I'm seeing in the chat, some are having more vivid dreams lately. Yeah, I can definitely imagine. So if you are a highly sensitive person, or any level of sensitivity with all of the Pisces energy right now, it's a lot. And some others are saying yes to ascension symptoms. Yeah. Oh, this is so true. Feeling simultaneously disintegrated and integrated. I'm feeling that too. It almost feels like one day I really want to be social and go out into the world and go connect with people and go do things and explore. And then the next day I want to be 100% hermit, but it almost seems like I'm just integrating what happened the day before. And that's been just interesting to observe. That's a little bit of my process right now. And I'm just trusting it, just going with it. Okay, so then May 3rd, we had Jupiter in Pisces sextile Pluto. And this was a crescent sextile. And so there are different kinds of sextiles. There's the waxing sextile, when it's a new relationship. After the conjunction, we come into this new crescent sextile. And that is a karmic choice point. It's different than the last quarter sextile. That is the reaping of sort of the karmic fruition, if you will. So right now, as a collective, we're at a karmic choice point, and it comes down to Jupiter. Are we connected with our higher selves? Are we in alignment with our higher self aspiration? And Pluto, what is the collective healing journey? Are we allowing ourselves to open up to our higher selves, to our souls, in how we are collectively evolving? There's a lot of options right now. You could take the option of fear. You could take the option of faith. That's pretty much the only two options, right? But then there's all the spin-offs of that, and then the story around what that means and what you tell yourself about what that means. And so looking at, okay, are you making choices predominantly out of faith, Jupiter, or fear, Pluto? Sextile, think about this. This is an opportunity to make a different choice. This time, even if for the past 2 years, past 5 years, past 10 years, your whole life, you've been making choices out of fear, this could be the time. Especially after May 3rd, with this Jupiter sextile Pluto, this could be the time where you actually make a different choice and you lean toward faith, and just see what that changes in your life. See where that road takes you. It's never too late to make a different choice. Okay. And then So today is May 6th. We have the moon in Cancer opposing Pluto. So this is happening once a month because Pluto stays in Capricorn very long term, and we're going to have the moon go through every sign once a month. And wherever you are in your astro awareness, this is something, if you're a student of mine, you'll definitely know that I recommend this highly. If you'd like to be a student, please reach out. I have lots of space in the Foundations of Astrology course. It's been super, super awesome. But wherever you are in your astrology journey, knowing where the moon is, it's going to show you where the mood is. It's going to show you where the emotional energy is. So today, emotional energy, moon in Cancer, a lot of energetic sensitivity. If you are an empath, anytime the moon is in Cancer, you might notice, ooh, I need to do even more energetic hygiene. If you aren't really an empath or don't identify as an empath, you might notice, oh, these days of the month, especially when the moon is in a water sign, oh, you just feel a little bit more connected with your intuition or psychic awareness. So since today, the moon is in Cancer, this is a really good day to tune in with your feelings. And so, especially if you're watching this or even listening on the replay between tonight and tomorrow, while the moon is still in Cancer, really looking at what you are feeding yourself informationally, especially because that's a big theme, especially of the now with this Mercury retrograde about to happen. What are you feeding yourself informationally? What you consume, you become. Cancer is associated with the feeding organs. So, literally, what we are feeding ourselves, it's going to either be nourishing and supportive and healthful, or it's going to make our lives more difficult. And with the sun in Taurus and the North Node in Taurus and Uranus in Taurus right now, and we're still in this eclipse portal that is led by Taurus. Taurus is all about habits, routine, ritual. You can ask yourself, am I feeding myself in a way that supports my health, in a way that supports my goals? Where is there space to create a new habit? Where can I feed myself differently in a way that's more aligned, perhaps with my changing needs? Uranus, right? We don't need the same thing in every season, just as we don't need the same thing every year or every phase of our lives. So this is a really important time to be listening to your body. Okay, then we have May 7th. So now we're moving into the future. Tomorrow, we're going to have Vesta conjunct Saturn at 24 degrees Aquarius. And so this is a Piscean degree, but in the sign of Aquarius. This is going to be some level of perhaps forgiveness, compassion. This is Piscean energy, but in Aquarius, to the collective, to our communities. How can we make our communities sacred again? How can we bring more love into our communities, whether it's a small group, our neighborhood, the people that we connect with at the store, at the post office, at our kids' schools? How can we bring more sacred energy to the collective in some way? Saturn represents the status quo, but the status quo is changing right now in Aquarius. So with Vesta there, Vesta being the goddess asteroid of sacred devotion, sacred service, she is what we need to focus on to make sacred. Making the status quo sacred, like looking at what's going on in the world, going on in our communities with the lens of loving objectivity can really help with Aquarius. And having reverence for people, having reverence for our communities. And that could be something as simple as looking people in the eye when we're going out, looking at strangers, smiling at them, saying hi. It's so simple, but to me, that's an act of reverence, like just acknowledging, wow, there's another person in front of me. There's another person with this beautiful evolutionary journey, and we happen to be walking on the same road right now. How special. And it can take 1 second just to make that acknowledgement. And that's an example of making our community sacred. So I invite you to do some journaling around that. Is there anything that you get to release around your idea or your observations of the world right? How things are going in the global story, and how is that influencing your personal story? Okay, and then May 8th, this will be the midpoint of the eclipse portal, which opened April 30th. May 8th will be the midpoint, and then it'll be closing May 15th, 16th, depending on your time zone. May 8th, there will be a first quarter moon at 18 degrees Leo. This is a Virgoan degree. And so it kind of puts the energy of Virgo with Leo. And so to me, this sounds like a very beautiful first quarter moon to release self judgment in our creative process. So, with all of the new rituals, the new routines, the new foundations for prosperity and abundance that we're really wanting to set with this solar eclipse energy in Taurus, well, are you judging your creative process? Are you judging what's coming up? Or are you allowing it to express free? Are you allowing it to be innocent and pure and unfettered, like not getting in our own way? That's a really big energy that I think is coming through with this first quarter moon. And so when that comes, May 8th, which is also Mother's Day, I'm assuming everywhere, at least where I am, it's Mother's Day. And so really looking at how you can embrace where you are in your creative process, even if that means all of the chips have not yet fallen, because they won't have while we're still in the middle of the eclipse portal. Okay. Then May 10th is a big day. We have Mercury stationing retrograde at 4 degrees Gemini. All I'm going to say about that is nurture your best thoughts. If you find yourself thinking a thought that feels good and it feels inspiring, think more of that. Keep going and doing that. If you are having thoughts that are not so great and maybe they're connected to emotions, do the emotional processing work. I have a video. It's on some very simple emotional processing techniques that I love, that I do daily, that I think are foundational for emotional processing work. But really, it's just about sitting with yourself, listening to yourself, being in the witness consciousness, and not pushing away the emotions, but actually welcoming them closer to you. That's really how we integrate. And that actually dissolves the emotions quicker than if we pretend they're not there. But if you say have just a repetitive thought that's maybe an intrusive thought, like, oh, you're not good enough, instead of like just brushing it away, I almost think it's, especially with the South Node in Scorpio, it's a great time to confront that thought. Like confront it head on and say, why? Why do you think that? Like, what is this from? How did this thought get here? Like, this is a big time to weed out certain thoughts. And we can be doing this in a gentle way. Probably there will be parallel emotional processing happening while we're weeding out these thoughts. But this is a really big opportunity. And then maybe there's certain thought patterns that just need to be buried. Like maybe they don't need to be dug up anymore. So you have to be the judge of that. But there's options. You don't have to stay stuck in any pattern. And right now, there's a big opportunity to release these patterns. So Mercury will be stationing retrograde at 4 degrees Gemini. Check out where you have that in your chart. May 10th, same day, Jupiter will also be entering Aries. So until October 27th, Jupiter will be in Aries. He'll also do some retrograde movement in there over the summer. We've been working with such expansive Piscean energy that I think that, at least what I've observed, is that we've been able to feel into more of our psychic energy, our emotional awareness over the past year. And now I think we're more ready for action. It's like I can do something tangible with this energy now and apply it to my life. So I have a feeling that we're going to start seeing some more action in the collective as well. But for yourself, what does that mean? What does that look like? What action do you get to take that's going to expand you? How do you get to expand, Jupiter, your instinctual awareness, Aries? That's really the invitation. Okay. Then we will have May 15th or 16th, the full moon lunar eclipse. This will be a total lunar eclipse at 25 degrees Scorpio, which is an Aries degree. So both very warrior energy combined. And what I've been really feeling about this in relation to what I was just mentioning around, really confronting our thoughts, confronting our limiting thoughts, or perhaps burying old thought patterns is with this full moon being conjunct the south node in Scorpio. I really think there's a beautiful opportunity to completely let go of the hurt, let go of the ways we've been hurt. And it's not like letting it go in this dispassionate, like, get away from me way. It's more of just like, I'm going to release this. And it's also going to release me. I'm going to release this story, and that story is going to release me. It's almost like the reverse of what you seek is seeking you, right? You've heard that. Well, what you're trying to let go of is also trying to let go of you. If you say, I'm ready to release this, I'm ready to forgive this person, this situation, this experience, this part of myself, all of the corded energy tied up in that situation or with that person it'll have nowhere to go. So it'll have to drop. And with certain things that might be easier said than done, but I do see that as a profound opportunity. Like, what story about your hurt, about your pain, about your trauma, about your victimhood do you get to completely release during this eclipse portal? Oh, I love this. Sometimes I find letting it go means truly incorporating it into self, releasing into true wholeness. Yeah, absolutely. To me, that is very Pisces. That's the Pisces healing way. It's almost like you invite the energy closer to you, and you just love it. And that's a really beautiful strategy. And I think with Scorpio, there's a little bit more of the warrior energy. Like, you might need to battle it out a little bit, because it can be very sometimes like manipulative, right? Like, thinking about some of the thought patterns that we have that are sneaky and manipulative, and like, you can almost have those conversations with yourself and get tied up into it, and then feel like really bound by it. And so in that way, it feels like the fierce warrior kind of love, a fierce merging, where I'm saying, I will not let this energy limit me anymore. I will not let this story limit me any longer. I will confront this so that I can evolve with it and through it. Yeah, I have a lot of Scorpio energy people in my family too, and it's been such a gift, and I didn't realize it at the time. And now I realize, wow, okay, there's some deep healing, transformative magic here in the Scorpio energy. This is the last thing that I'll say about this full moon lunar eclipse in Scorpio, is that the way Scorpio energy works and how you know that something is right for you to magnetize into your life, or to attract more of into your life, or to go after, is, does it turn you on? If it's something that you're wanting to create and you're feeling like, oh, I should create this thing, it's probably not going to take you very far. But if you want to create something that it's like, whoa, this is turning me on, I feel excited about this, that's probably going to lead you closer to the right direction, especially if you have strong Scorpio in your chart. That would be an energy that you're working with throughout your whole life. And I view this full moon as an opportunity to just release the things that don't turn you on. Maybe they did for you at a certain time, and that can include the trauma drama, right? Because sometimes we can be turned on by trauma drama, but we don't need to do that. There's other things to be turned on to that are creative rather than destructive. So just looking at what that feels like, what that means for you. Yeah, I'm really loving this chat, and I'm loving that so many of you are here live with me. Thank you for sharing this space with me, as always. I pulled a couple cards, just asking about what would be most supportive for the collective, and I pulled the 10 of Cups in the conscious realm and the 6 of Wands in the unconscious realm. So these are both really high vibing cards, really focusing on this end game, this end result, and cups correlate to feeling. Like, the end result, what do you want to feel? What do you want to feel in what you're creating? It might not be that you're trying to create a nuclear family, right? It could be something completely different. But what do you want to feel? And create from that space. And then also know that the victory energy, it starts in the mind. Um, and something that I do every morning, and you might think this is a little nerdy, but I'm 100% here for it, is I just lift my arms up in a V. And I wake up, I put my feet on the ground, and I just say, I am Nura and I am victorious. Just out the gate. I woke up, I'm here, I'm victorious. I'm alive, I'm victorious. Sometimes I'll walk around my neighborhood and do that too. And I wonder who sees me, and I almost like hope people do. But just, doing things like that, that is so this card, because what you believe, what you feed your subconscious, you start to project into your aura. It just becomes who you are. And that's something that I think a lot of us could really do with more of. So yes, you are victorious. Okay, so homework, soul work, soul play for you this week. So definitely feeling into how has the solar eclipse opened you? What can you feel starting to be liberated within you? What would be the fast track to your prosperity? That is kind of what's being liberated for you right now, especially where you have Taurus in your chart. Another question: what stories are being replayed in your mind, and how do you get to re-story them in a way that really serves you in this time? That's really connected to the Mercury retrograde. Okay. Oh, this is part 3. If you could take both of those energies together, so around this acceleration of your prosperity and then whatever other story is going on right now, how are they connected? Because a lot of times they are. I think how we do one thing is kind of how we do everything. So the story we might be telling ourselves in our relationship, or in how we're parenting, or in our career, or in our money story, they all tend to have the same shadow, similar shadow, right? Like the shadow of I don't have enough. That could be enough time, enough money, enough energy, right? You could see how that could play out everywhere. So then how could you find whatever is the thing that creates the most discomfort, that you kind of know, like, oh, this isn't really true, but it comes up a lot. Find that, and then find the opposite of that and create an affirmation linked to that. So for me, this is an example I give a lot because this is really true for me. I'm a Taurus rising, so I am definitely here to work on the axis of enoughness. And I also have Virgo South Node, so the double enoughness energy. And something that I have to say to myself all the time, whenever I'm in, and this is kind of how it comes up for me, like time scarcity or energy scarcity, because I do a lot of things. And my biggest fear is that I won't have enough time, or I won't have enough energy, like I'll be too tired or something. I repeat to myself all the time, because the opposite of that is God is my supply. God, Goddess, infinite intelligence is my supply. I will have exactly the right amount of energy and time that I require to do the work that I came here to do. I have to say that to myself every day. And it really serves me. And then I just know, like, oh, okay, I'm tired now. I think that means my work is done today, but I did my best and I wasn't worried about it. So that's my opportunity, my invitation for you is to take your biggest fear that's coming up in your stories and reframe it. Tell yourself the opposite. I'd love to hear what comes up for you if you want to share in the chats, because I also think it could be really inspiring to see what everybody writes. I think we can all gain a lot from each other. And if you're interested in learning how to read your own chart, please do check out my foundations course. You can find all the information for that at nurarochelle.com. It's a really beautiful program. It's about 50% pre-recorded content, and the other half of it is twice monthly live chart reading practice. And it's really beautiful, really intimate. And we all expand each other. So that's definitely a place to be if you are on the path of astro awareness, if you're astro curious on any level. And even if you've been studying for a while, sometimes it's just nice to get into a space where you can practice with people. Okay, so sending you all so much love. Please let me know if you have any thoughts, questions. Also, if there's something that's been coming up in the transits that you'd like me to talk more about on these weekly sessions, do let me know. All right, I look forward to seeing you next week. Same time, same place, 5:30 p.m. Arizona time. All right, Have a beautiful weekend and happy Mother's Day to all of the mothers out there. Bye for now.